Hello, hello. Good evening. I hope you're doing well, very well. I'm so excited to share another record spotlight with you. Today, I have a couple of Simon and Garfunkel albums, both vintage albums. So, very popular, kind of classic albums that I recently have been revisiting, as I do. I like to come back to some of these favorite albums and these beautiful melodies on both albums. So let's begin with this one. Came first. Unfortunately, there's a small, or fortunately, depends on how you look at it, there's a small imperfection here. When I was moving a while back, a wild thing happened where I had many of my items on a trailer, and where I live, it sort of rarely rains, but as soon as my items were loaded on the trailer, it started to pour rain. And so I covered these belongings that included my records, some of my records, with a tarp, and luckily they survived pretty well. We got lucky, but a few have some battle scars, as you can see. However, thankfully, it still plays, so in that regard, came out okay. I've always been struck by this album cover and these sort of church outfits. I don't know if they're church outfits. They strike me as, like a liturgical costume. That with the flowers in the foreground and the herbs. It almost reminds me of like a traditional church service with some lilies or some flower arrangements at the altar. So it's a little bit, I've always found it a little bit strange, but interesting. But paired with this very ornate font, it feels a little bit self-conscious, perhaps, but it's still a great album. Yeah, it's very serious indeed. So, compared to the album coming next, Parsley, Sage, Rosemary and Time is more of a traditional folk album. So, I need to take a look at the published date of this album, but it is before 1970, which is when Bridge Over Troubled Water came out, the next album we're going to take a look at. So, some noteworthy songs on this album. They're some of my favorites. Scarborough Fair and Canticle. Patterns, Cloudy, which is such a beautiful song, kind of a song about meandering kind of being alone with one's thoughts and just that like solitary enjoyment, relaxing feeling. I like that a lot. Homeward Bound, which is a bit melancholy, and there's, that yearning. I think that the band, having been on tour quite a bit, Paul Simon and Garfunkel perhaps missed home and missed their loved ones. So it's that kind of classic theme of being on the road and wanting to come home to your loved ones. So, the Big Bright Green Pleasure Machine, which is a bit of a satirical song, just to my understanding. I like some of the guitar riffs, the little guitar riffs on that song. However, I would not say it is my favorite. I think that it is it's more time bound and less timeless than some of the other songs, which are more kind of universal human themes rather than kind of the satire of the counterculture of the 1960s is more what that is like. So, of course, some of the themes like escapism, even unhealthy escapism, and kind of the misleading elements of some types of media are definitely relevant today, but I would just say perhaps it's just a personal preference, slightly less resonant than some of the other ones. Homeward Bound feels very timeless. And Feelin' Groovy, which is also called the 59th Street Bridge song. Yeah, that's a really fun, nice, kind of just relaxed song. Side 2 is The Dingling Conversation. Flowers never bend with the rainfall. How I was Robert McNamara into submission. For Emily, Whenever I May Find Her. A poem on the underground wall. And 7 o'clock news, Silent Night. I would say that the 7 o'clock news, Silent Night is quite is a fairly obvious statement about the contrast, like peaceful Christmas vibes with the sometimes disturbing nature of the goings on in the world. I would like to read to you a little bit of the description of some of the songs from the back. I'll show you the back first. So the back is fairly simple. Looks like this. And this has quite a bit of text. So I have noticed that with many of the folk albums of the 1960s, there's quite a bit of like exposition going on. Perhaps because the poetry of the lyrics was of high importance and continues to be a reason why these songs endure. So the music of Simon and Garfunkel shows evidence of all the other virtues too, besides the poetry of the lyrics. That sort of speaks to what we were just talking about. There's a delicate musical design of almost lapidary in detail. It has vitality, but it is controlled, the sounds being made deliberately for the artist's conscious purpose. Take the second line in Scarborough Fair Canticle, a delicate interweaving of two songs. The anti-war message that is implied and sometimes explicit in this is always signaled by the electric bass. Take the glorious kaleidoscope of rushing feelings, blowing winds, shifting colors, bursting moods of joy and exultation and cloudy. The song is effervescent. One is refreshed hearing it. The references to Tolstoy and to Tinker Bell and the great line, "Why don't you show your face and bend my mind?" all assume a common experience and a common language, the international language of youth. Take the way Art Garfunkel has arranged the voices, not only on Cloudy, with its background, but also on Scarborough Fair Canticle, and his own featured number for Emily, wherever I may find her. The voices blend, separate, interweave, and sing counter to one another with the delicacy of a clear glass etching. So, it continues, but I really like reading that liner notes on the back. Alright, I'm going to put this one aside and move on to Bridge Over Troubled Water. So, this album is Simon and Garfunkel's last album together. It was issued in 1970 and was a very popular album and continues to be widely listened to. It represents a little bit of a shift away from the purely folk approach of Parsley, Sage, Rosemary and Time. So, when I think about this album, I think about an echo chamber. I think about rain, a rainy day. I think about a great hall. Imagine people singing in a great hall. I think that Bridge Over Troubled Water is a beautiful song with a memorable melody and really fantastic lyrics. I will say that the production of that song in particular on this album, and it's not my favorite. Sometimes when I listen to it, it almost just feels a bit overdone. Beautiful lyrics, but this is quite earnest, which is nice to listen to, but it feels a little bit self-serious in the earnestness. That's just my impression. Of course, if you love it, I can understand why. However, I really love some of the other songs on this album. Some interesting things about this particular album are that it was recorded with a group of studio musicians called the Wrecking Crew, who were very prolific in that time period. Recently, in different video, we talked about the Beach Boys album Pet Sounds, and the Wrecking Crew also played on Pet Sounds and many famous albums from the mid to late 1960s. Just incredible musicians. I would like to learn more about them. One of these days I'm going to do a little bit more research on that. So, the songs on this album. Many fantastic songs. Many are influenced by different types of world music, as well as gospel, jazz, rock, rhythm and blues. The world music aspects of this album to me remind me of the later Paul Simon solo albums came after it. So you can hear that interest and that influence in this one as well. So, on Bridge Over Troubled Water, part of it was, so the drums were recorded in an echo chamber, which is why it sounds like it's in a great hall. For me, that drum sound in the echo chamber is really an iconic sound associated with this album. When I think about it, I often imagine that kind of echoey sound. The second song, so that's the first song on it. The second song is El Condor Pasa, which the songwriters, Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel, incorrectly assumed was a traditional song. So it is, I believe, an Andean. It comes from an Andean song, but had a copyright protected author. So they ran into some issues with that later. It's a great song. It's one of my favorite songs on this album. I think it might be my favorite. When I was like 18 or 19, I used to just play it on my record player and lay on my bed and just look at the ceiling and just enjoy it and play it over and over and over. I still connect with it. I'm not really sure why. At that point in life, it just felt so vital and a perfect representation of how I felt. There's like a purity in it, a sweetness, a longing, in the falsetto chorus. I still just love it. So, The Boxer is another really great song on this album. And apparently, it took a very long time to record. And apparently, it took a very long time to record. Over 100 hours of session time, I read. So, I will read the songs on the album to you in order. Side 1 has Bridge Over Troubled Water, El Condor Pasa, Cecilia, Keep the Customer Satisfied, So Long, Frank Lloyd Wright, which is a beautiful song. I love it. Beautiful melody. Side 2, The Boxer, Baby Driver, The Only Living Boy in New York, Why Don't You Write Me? Bye Bye Love, and Song for the Asking. I'll show you the back here. This image of Simon and Garfunkel walking along, and the text to actually the song lyrics here. So, as we discussed with Parsley, Sage, Rosemary and Time, a lot of emphasis put on the lyrics, as they are a bit of poetry. So, I'm really happy that you were able to join me for this record collection video. Please let me know which records you would love to see and which music moves you the most. Until then,